Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video in the Movie Mates channel. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Oh,
Hey man, great to see you. On today's show, we've got another foreign language film review. If you haven't seen our last one, we reviewed the Danish film Another Round, starring Mads Mikkelsen. And in a similar trend to that one, we have another Mads Mikkelsen Danish film entitled Riders of Justice, which I'm really excited to talk to you guys about. I'll pass over to Cam to explain what the film's about. So yeah, off to you, mate.
so this is, in short, a comedic revenge film, which, as Matthew says, stars Mads Mikkelsen and a very talented ensemble. The film is about a soldier's wife who is killed in a train accident, and these men approach him to question as to whether it was indeed an accident. I think it's an incredible film. We'll obviously get into, our opinions plot wise. My spoiler stuff isn't massive. I have a comment on the end of the film, but if we just flag that up as a spoiler, I'd say everything else I have to say could probably be said under the non-spoiler tag.
Yeah, me too, to be honest. I don't have a huge amount to say for this one, but like you say, yeah, I think we could probably just go by general thoughts on the film, and if we're gonna flag something spoilery, we could say so. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just before we kick off today's review, thank you very much for everyone who supported us recently. If you want to check out our most recent video, we invited our friend Cash back on for the review of the third and final Kiss and Booth film. I really enjoyed that one. And yeah, go check out that. It's a funny one. And yeah, you can check out our email and our iTunes link in the description down below, as well as time codes for the review. They're always there. And of course, if you've seen the film, be sure to comment down below. We're always there to read and react to them. And we'd love to see any new commenters down there. But yeah, mate, if you want to open the floor with your notes, I'll chip in where I can.
Could I just quickly adjust my mic?
Of course you can. No worries. Cool.
So as Matthew said, we haven't seen too many foreign films between us. We've reviewed even fewer. But so far this is the second Danish film I've ever seen, and I think we can both easily say that they're 2 for 2 so far.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's not a bad one out of the bunch so far. They're both really good. Of course, the other one being Another Round. Yeah, like they're both very different in some instances, but I think there's similarities in the way sort of Danish cinema does humor. A lot of it is quite dark, and maybe that's just a coincidence that the two Mads Mikkelsen films as well. But I think they do dark humor really well, and sort of physical humor very well. There's not a lot of sort of punchlines, so to speak, but a lot of the humor just does come from characters just having tantrums or something, or like walking into stuff. A lot of it is that. And I think it works really well. It's not actually usually it wouldn't be my sort of usual style of comedy, but I think here, especially in this film, it works really well.
Yeah, and I think within this film, Mads Mikkelsen has pretty much proved that he can do anything. I think within this film, especially, he shows that he can be terrifying and lovable in equal measure. There's a scene where he sort of has this emotional breakdown in the bathroom, and it's one of the biggest showings of talent I've ever seen. We're going to be reviewing The Father sometime soon. Finally finishing off the Best Picture nominees for this year. I think there's a similar scene, or I mean, less violent, but equally emotionally raw. I think would be sort of a fair parallel to make between the two. And I just thought it was absolutely incredible. I just want to see him in everything. I think he has sort of a cult following of dedicated fans. That sort of love him as like this like cute, huggable kind of iconic guy. And I think if they saw this film, they wouldn't think different of him as a person, but it maybe put into perspective, the kind of roles he can play. I mean, I suppose he already played quite famously Hannibal Lecter in the TV show Hannibal, and I guess that's most people's introduction to him as an actor. So I mean, maybe in my mind that this was me seeing him do something very different. I suppose because he's still underneath it a good guy, whereas in Hannibal not so much. So
Yeah.
there's more layers to this role than I think we've seen Mads Mikkelsen do.
Yeah, certainly. He's one of those big name actors that I haven't seen in a lot of projects. Regrettably, because from the ones I have seen him in, he's fantastic. My first film I had viewed him was Doctor Strange, and of course he doesn't have much to do there. Of course, CGI and and prosthetics kind of take away from his performance a little bit. And of course, he's not the main character there anyway, so screen time is limited. But yeah, man, you really feel for him in this movie. And I think there's really important sort of mental health layer in this film to be discussed too. It certainly just deals with themes. Obviously, grief is a major one, but just like acceptance and like moving on and those kind of things, and trying not to be stuck in the past. And I think Mads Mikkelsen, I think this performance is fantastic. It's sad that these films are never going to get the box office reception or the public acclaim of the typical sort of action sci-fi adventures, your Marvel, DC, Paramount style films. But there was a big audience where we saw it at our sort of university sort of film theater, and yeah, like I think there is definitely an audience for these kind of films, like we said in the Another Round review, and this is just another brilliant showcase of Danish cinema specifically, because it's probably it's probably right up there with one of my favorite performances of the year from Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, from what I can tell, anybody that sees it loves it. It's just that not that many people are getting to see it,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
Although within Denmark, I believe it actually, I think it opened very closely to Another Round, and I think that this actually beat Another Round, at the box office. Which, I mean, for the sort of, the Oscar buzz around Another Round, and then it eventually being nominated, that I find that quite surprising.
Yeah, for sure. And we've mentioned that film a lot. I think one thing that this film does even better than that is the cast of side characters. Especially there's a really great sort of comedic style each actor has here. And I mean, it's the action as well, balanced with the comedy is done very, very well. Like, it's done in a sophisticated way where there's not loads of silly cuts or anything like that, or it doesn't shy away from violence either. You know what I mean? It just showcases it in just the right way, where it's not sort of overbearing or it's too much. It's really blended really nicely with the humor as well.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most visceral films that I've seen that
Yeah, yeah.
still remained grounded in reality. Because sort of an easy comparison to present day would be with the Suicide Squad, where everybody's faces are being blown up, or they're being crushed to
Mhm.
death, and they're very fantastical. There's a lot of CGI there, and it's happening in the context of a universe that couldn't exist. So you can kind of remove yourself from that quite easily and say, it's just a movie, and the violence is sort of taken out of it a bit. But here, where it's these real people, these real characters, it's not a fantastical world. It's John Wick esque, in a way, I guess. But it's more grounded in reality than that, and the kills feel real, and I feel like that adds a lot of suspense and danger and you know
Yeah.
goriness in general to it.
Yeah, it's got like a John Wick, Liam Neeson, action style feel to it, but as well the unusual tone. Like, usually if I would say a film has an unusual tone, that would be quite a negative thing. But I think here it's anything but that, because a lot of scenes here are played for laughs, but at the same time there's sort of a tragic underlayer there of characters' mental health and sort of traumas and those kind of things. Um, so I mean, yeah, like it's one of those films where I don't have a lot to say about it, but what I do have to say about it is, for the most part, really well done. And there's not one particular big negative for me that I can sort of say is really detracts from it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about the ensemble cast. I think that it's very likable and balanced. I did think at points the character of Otto is a bit of a wet blanket. Because he sort of presents this hypothetical situation, but then he is sort of quick to dismiss any form of justice. Even if you take out the fact, even if you remove the violence, he sort of wanted to, like, you know play a prank rather than get things sorted by the police. He sort of makes some efforts, but I don't think there was everything that could have been done there.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment to make for sure. Not every character is perfect here, but I think, yeah, it's because the film's events are like, so not your typical run of the mill stuff, that it can seem quite strange. And obviously there's a sort of big kind of twist in there, like giving too much away, that certainly is an archetype of that kind of blend of action and humor in a sense, because on the surface, you'd think a lot of the events in this film shouldn't be played for laughs, but a lot of them are, and but for the most part, I think it works.
Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to Wikipedia here because it has one of the most comprehensive breakdowns of a film I've ever encountered.
Yeah,
And
Wikipedia's good at that.
we saw this film, about a week ago, so making precise notes is a bit of a challenge. So to have that resource was actually very useful. I agree with you that that this does have a very bizarre tone, one that we're not used to, and it may well just be standard of international cinema that we just haven't encountered. It just has this really rare quality, at least in the films that I've seen, where you can be laughing 1 second and then just have your heart broken the next. But all the while it's maintaining this incredibly wholesome tone. Where all the characters are so lovable, even though they're committing all of these you know these very violent acts. But it's the relationships that they share with each other that sort of brings the morality back to them.
Yeah, 1,000,000%, bro. A lot of the characters have a great sense of purity about them as well. As much as they're killing people and things like that, as bizarre as it sounds, like there's goodness in them, and with that, there's like the emotional heartbreak of like we're saying about these personal traumas and sort of past events that have really impacted them, namely Mads Mikkelsen's character as well.
Yeah, to get into a bit of the more spoilery side, because I think we're approaching near the end of the film. I just feel like it does really effectively portray the danger of putting everything into the answer that you want. It's scary and it's incredibly sad that Martin, or sorry, no, what's it, Marcus?
Marcus.
Martin was his character in Another Round. So Marcus, he's sort of putting all his eggs in one basket. Thinking this is the answer, and I'm going to kill to get my form of justice, and to have that tragically turn out to be, a failure in intelligence, where they've just got it wrong. It's really heartbreaking, and that moment in the bathroom is absolutely tragic because he's one reflecting on the death of his wife. He's finally he's finally out of the denial stage, out of the I can do something about it stage. And the moment where he figures out that no one is to blame, that it was truly an accident. It's the moment where he's looking at himself and thinking, what kind of person am I? I've committed these violent acts, and it was to people who didn't necessarily deserve it. They were criminals, but they weren't they weren't his wife's killers. I mean, the one guy that was keeping the guy as a sex slave, I wouldn't cry too many tears over having killed him.
Yeah, it's funny because it's so strange how easily the human brain can convince itself of what it wants to hear. Obviously, in that instance, it was pseudo Marcus convincing himself that despite the mathematical sort of probability on the computer, these people were, all these coincidences had lined up, and these were indeed his wife's killers, even though they weren't. So, yeah, it's a little bit similar to the, as bizarre as this comparison is, the Peter Parker Uncle Ben dynamic when he in the first Spider-Man film, and he convinces himself that that's what happened, but obviously in that one it was something else that occurred. But yeah, I think here that's the zenith of the film really for me. With that, with sort of what's the word, sort of outburst in the bathroom. It's so beautifully done, and the film doesn't sort of linger on it with one sort of lasting shot. It cuts away with it, and then you just see his bloody face and stuff, and he's just a mess. And yeah, you feel for him, bro. You really do, even despite the fact that he's probably killed people who still aren't innocent by any means, but probably a bit more innocent than his wife's kill, or well, what he thinks his wife's killers ends up being an accident. So yeah, it is heartbreaking, man. It is. As I say, it's funny how the human brain can convince itself of what it wants to hear, even though that's sometimes not the case.
Yeah, throughout the whole film, they're obviously provoking the riders of justice. Surprisingly, the film is named after the gang they're trying to take out, rather than
Yeah, I thought it was going to be
the
them,
band of heroes
the main guys.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we could have got a cool nickname for that team. I would have appreciated that. I was very surprised, at that point that we get this whole shootout at the end of the film, at Marcus's house, and I was very surprised that everyone made it out alive. You know, it was hinted at that, you know, Marcus had obviously been shot multiple times. It seemed like he maybe wasn't going to make it. But then Matilda made a comment, you know, about, you know, about the temperature or something, you know, and I wasn't sure whether she was asking him or saying herself, and I thought maybe, you know, shock
Yeah.
twist, she was gonna die, but then just everybody makes it out alive, and I just feel like it further ties into that bizarre but greatly appreciated wholesome vibe to the whole film. You know, despite it being this like Punisher style reckoning film, you
Yeah.
know, at the heart of it, it's just about family overcoming grief in, you know, the only way they could. You know, he you know the character Sirius, Matilda's boyfriend, you know, makes an observation that, you know, because he's a military man, you know, maybe he can only express himself through violence, and you know it's a form of grief, you know, like form of dealing with grief that we've only really seen in sort of, you know, the Punisher or, you know, similar revenge films, and it was just really refreshing to, you know, have him, you know, just make it out alive. Not only that, but, you know, you know, repair his relationship with his daughter, and, you know, have a bright future to look forward to.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect summary of what I was really feeling about it, man, because it's a refreshing film. It's an unusual film, but it's one that I would recommend if it's in your local theater or whatever, or your local university showing it or anything like that. I'd say definitely go see it. It's a really, really good watch, and it gets you thinking. It really does. And I think that's something Another Round also does really, really well. They're both, you know, very different kind of themes. In both, one's kind of like a midlife crisis, and the other one's kind of more of this sort of action revenge film. But I mean, Mads Mikkelsen. I mean, I'm definitely on board that train now, because he's probably one of my favorites at the minute. But that concludes my
Is it
thoughts on the
enough to
film.
get? Is it enough to get you to watch Fantastic Beasts 3?
Oh, I don't know about that. I remember going to see the second one with you, and oh man, it was tough.
Pretty awful, right?
Yeah, it was bad. And that concludes my thoughts on the Riders of Justice, man. I think from yourself.
Well, you know, whenever the movie was over, you know, I turned around and I said to my dad, what do you think? And he said, you know, that he thinks it's the best film that he's seen in 5 years. And I just think that that's a really glowing review. And, you know, it's not necessarily my opinion. You know, I do think I preferred Another Round, you know, and we're not just comparing them because they're, you know, Danish film star Mads Mikkelsen. I'm just comparing them because those are probably the two best films I've seen this year. You know, so I'm saying I
They're that
think
good, yeah.
Another just edged it out a little bit for me. You know, I just think I find something really special in that I find here as well. I just there was something in Another Round that really spoke to me, I suppose. But you know, I thought it was absolutely incredible. You know, I suppose I should ask you, Matthew, massive hit or piece of shit?
It's got to be a massive hit, man. Really does have to be. I think comparing the two, I think this is, you know, this one I prefer slightly better. Both of course really, really, really good, and definitely up there with, you know, top 5 films of the year so far. I think this one, it is more my kind of film. You know, I quite like those sort of revenge style flicks, and there's a lot to be liked here. There's a lot to be enjoyed, and it's a film with a lot of layers to it as well, which is always nice to see. And as I say, it gets you thinking. That's one thing I always like to look for in a good film. So, man, yeah, it's a massive hit. Of course, I'm sensing the same from you.
Yeah, is it your top film in the cinema?
I'd say Suicide Squad
Okay.
beats it marginally. And it's not something I expected myself to say with the Suicide Squad, because, um, you know, it's, although it is my typical kind of genre, I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I honestly think that's probably one of the best films of the year.
Mhm.
Still holding out number one is The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. I don't see anything beating that, just because
Fair.
that is just my favorite genre in a nutshell, really. But I'm sensing
Yeah,
yours
because
is probably Another Round, or what do you think?
sci-fi, time loop, and romance and
Got it,
mystery. Like
got it.
it is perfect, really. The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. That's probably one not many people have seen. We'd recommend you see that and then come
Yes,
back and listen to our review of it that we did
yes.
several months ago. Yeah, I do think it'd have to be Another Round for me for this year.
Mhm.
The Suicide Squad. The more I think about it, the less I like it. You know, I
Okay.
still think it's very strong. You know, but I think it was maybe you know, I stand by my review of it. You know, I think it's as well as, you know, I think it was as good as we reviewed it. I just maybe have
Yeah,
I don't have any more issues with it. It's just what I liked about it has diminished slightly.
yeah,
It'd be
that's
closer
fair.
to like an 8 out of 10 rather than a 9 out of 10. So yeah, I think another round is probably the strongest showing at the cinema for me this year. But this is very very close. I thought it was absolutely incredible. It is a massive hit for me. This was a film that we were sort of maybe going to see, maybe not going to see. Because with it being a smaller film, getting a limited release, we only had sort of a handful of options on days and times to see it. And, waiting for that to all line up with our schedules. It was kind of looking 50-50 as to whether it was going to happen, and I'm very very thankful that we managed it because
Definitely.
it was an incredible experience.
100%. Well, that wraps up another review in the channel. Thank you very much, Colin, for your time. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to check out our other review of the foreign films reviewed in the channel, you can check out our foreign film playlist. I'll be sure to create that when this is being uploaded. And as I say, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Hope you guys are all keeping well. Hope your family and friends are all keeping safe and well too. Take care, everyone, and farewell.
Bye bye.